welcome to episode 18 of Rubbish Talk Podcast with myself, Alistair Meldrum.
And myself, Jane Bond.
And today we have Debbie Neely from Entrust Environmental Limited. And Debbie specialises in dealing with organic waste and looking for suitable outlets for these, mainly application to land. So we had a pretty interesting chat with Debbie and the level and extent of some of the work she does. But before that, as usual, we'll have a little bit of a rundown of some news items or some things that have crossed our path, grabbed our attention. And I think the first one you've got, Jane, to do with waste definitions.
Yes, I was looking, the Chartered Institute of Waste Management, CIWM, have identified perhaps a need to revisit the definition of waste, which I thought was quite interesting because we've had this definition of waste for quite a while. It's all based on Waste Framework Directive coming out of Europe and all this kind of stuff and legal definitions. So, but in terms of all that, the relationship between the circular economy, perhaps there is a stigma of sometimes, processed waste is still a waste unless it's or a byproduct until perhaps it's sold or whatever, even though it has a use and it can be sold and it is worth money. So I guess I suppose it's balancing that between, the waste crime and, trying to fiddle things in with no, it's definitely it's definitely not a waste, blah, blah, blah. So I suppose it's trying to balance those two, isn't it? And I think one of the biggest ones we've always looked at is waste soils. How can you, in some instances, if you're taking soils from one place but actually using it for a purpose somewhere else, is it a waste? And that's it's always been quite a heated discussion, perhaps is the word.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting, I think it's a sort of topic that the waste industry gets very heated up about, but I think the public probably don't actually quite understand because, so I think to sort of explain it briefly is, so if something's a waste, then certain regulations apply to how you deal with that and so on. Whereas if something's a product, then these regulations don't necessarily apply. And there's some materials, and we talk about this later with Debbie, once you produce compost, you can then get it to what we would call end of waste status, and it then becomes a product and you can use it quite freely. But there's things like soil, for example, that there's not actually a mechanism, there's no mechanism out there for taking away soil and turn it into a product soil, and that causes all sorts of complications around it. I've not actually, I was aware of the thing from CIWM, I've not had a proper read of it actually. I did share it on LinkedIn and I've got a few comments from various people. I think Albion shared it actually. So I need to have a proper read it and see exactly what CIWM is looking at. But I had much more exciting news for you, Jane, that I spotted on social media. So in a local area in Glasgow, one of the locals has removed the communal bins from the communal bin store, and he's fitted himself a very nice hot tub.
So I saw that picture, Alistair, and I thought, my goodness, there's nothing like sitting out in the middle of the street showing off your whatever you wear when you're in your hot tub. But anyway.
There you go. So we'll share that picture in the show notes for anybody. And then the other one which I've been meaning to share for ages actually is I sometimes in air there's some back lanes between houses, and obviously that's where people, because they've got quite a lot of bins, they quite often leave them in the back lane. But there's this one particular house that's got all 6 bins all chained together and padlocked. So I just wonder if there's a sort of bin thief or someone going on in that particular back lane. But I think what a lot of the public don't understand, and council staff certainly do know this, that sometimes when the bin lift equipment is a bit worn and old, or the bin's a bit old and worn, what will happen is when the refuse collection guys tip the bin, sometimes the bin will fit and drop into the hopper as well. So it's not that somebody's coming along and stolen your bin, it's that when the council's emptied it, it's dropped into the hopper and they've taken it away. So if you ever have that problem, then it's a matter of phoning up your council and asking for a new wheelie bin delivery.
Do you know, these wheelie bins last a while, don't they? I mean, I've had my wheelie bin for my residual waste ever since I moved into my house, and that was like nearly 24 years ago.
Well, some do, and some don't. I know for a fact South Ayrshire, the new ones they use for the plastic, the cardboard and the glass are very, very poor quality, and the lids keep breaking. And I remember having a discussion with the waste people, and they were quite upset about the procurement decision that was based predominantly on price rather than quality. And when you compare the quality of these bins to, as you say, I've got a residual bin that has probably been at my house for 30 years, and it's still perfectly acceptable. So it's one of these classic procurement decisions. Cheapest is not always best.
I think they must have a better class of bins in East Renfrewshire. That's all.
Well, you never know. You never know.
Well, the other thing that I was looking at as well is back to festivals that I've been harking on about for quite a while, and the waste produced by festivals, particularly tents being left behind, is that Decathlon have obviously got a solution on this, and they're renting tents. But I'm not entirely sure whether this means that they pick them up from the festival location or not. But, you know, perhaps we can work on that one.
I suppose if they don't already do that, then it's maybe an interesting thing for festivals to, have a Decathlon stand at their site, and you go in and you pick up your tent, up your tent, go into the festival, use your tent, and then return. It was interesting when I looked at the Decathlon thing, and it's behind that sits ACS clothing, and they are based in Scotland, and they do a lot of work on circular clothing. So you don't own clothes, you rent clothes, and you can hire a package of clothes for the weekend if you tell them what they're doing. They do loads of stuff like that. So really, really interesting organisation. And we'll put the Decathlon link for the tents and the ACS clothing link up. And the other one was spotted. In fact, Alicia, who does all the work in the background to put the podcast together, she spotted an organisation called Hubbub, who are a creative environment charity based in London. And what they've done is they've actually put in bins that allow you to vote on something. So basically what it's doing is encouraging people, and initially it's for smokers, but I think they're looking for any type of litter to be put in. So if you want to vote for, yes, you put it in the yes bin. If you want to vote no, the no bin. So they're looking at it as one, encouraging people to bin their litter effectively, but also using it as a marketing, communication, all that type of stuff. So quite an interesting idea. So again, we'll share that on the show notes.
Yeah, it's quite interesting. I'm just looking at the website now, and you're voting for Oppenheimer or Barbie on this one, which that's quite an interesting one. Yeah. I've got and finally kind of thing is I've been driving down to the office down in Ayr a few times this week, and I was listening to the radio, as I always do, and they were talking about waste on the moon, and how much waste was being left on the moon. So I thought, really? So I googled it, because I thought I need to check this. And it's right, because it was looking at the and Alistair said to me, "Are you sure that's right?" And I said, "Yes, it's on the Royal Museums of Greenwich website, so it must be right." And 96 bags of human waste have been left on the moon. I mean, 96 bags. I mean, that's just, take your waste somewhere else. But I just think that's horrendous. And it does say that the scientists are keen to one day bring this back to Earth to study how its time on the moon has affected it. I'm like, aye, right, that's just a way of saying we're going to leave it up there until somebody really has a bit of a strop and we'll have to bring it back. But I just think that's shocking. I mean, there's other things. There's like golf balls and flags and a photo, and there's a little, there's some other things which are kind of more mementos, I suppose, which are still rubbish, as in, rubbish waste. But the 96 bags of human waste, I think, is shocking.
I did wonder when you shared that one, Jane. I was like, this is made up, but it does look to be pretty genuine, and it is quite interesting that that's what's happened. And then really just finally, some Albion news or Albion things. We seem to have been, I don't know, we've been very busy with first aid courses, medicals for staff, all sorts of different things. But I was at an interesting event yesterday. So University of West Scotland, who we work quite closely with and have quite good partnerships with, they were hosting a trade mission or trying to get ready for a trade mission to Barbados. And it was really interesting that, and I was asked to be there in terms of the links Albion had with the university to demonstrate the sort of good industry links they've got, and also to talk on behalf of Switch. But it was really interesting when you start talking about waste management, they start talking about circular economy, the island communities, they want to try and manage their waste and so on. So it's really similar issues. So I am actually debating. They have got a trade mission going at the end of November, and I'm thinking, we should maybe be going. But I think I'm going rather than yourself, Jane.
Do you know what? There's always this pulling rank, isn't there? Oh, do you know what? We'll go with that one.
So see, and the next one is potential. Well, we have got exciting news, but I'm actually not totally sure I'm allowed to release it yet. So we will be going down. Albion will be going down to Cardiff for the national KTP finals. And if people remember back to the original podcast, so Heather Beattie, that used to co-host the podcast, was a KTP with ourselves.
Are you doing this acronym thing now?
Well, I was going to say that, but I'm desperately trying to think and remember what KTP stands for.
Knowledge Transfer Partnership.
So this is a three-way partnership. It was between Albion, University of West Scotland, and the KTP, like Heather Beattie herself, and that's so there's an awards 2023 awards. So we're attending later in the year. So we'll keep you posted with that as I work out whether I'm allowed to release the information.
That's quite exciting.
Absolutely. And then last but not least, on last week's podcast with Laura Young, we did actually put a poll at the end of the podcast about whether we should ban vapes, disposable vapes, or not. Now, the poll's still open, so if you are interested in start logging into that, it's open for another 6 or 7 days, I think. But we're currently sitting at 90% are supportive of a ban. I think it's pretty clear cut at the moment which direction it's going. And that, I think, is all. Just really time to introduce Debbie Neely. As I said, Debbie works for an organisation called Entrust Environmental, a wealth of knowledge about application of waste, organic waste to land. I've known Debbie for many years and just enjoy the Irish accent. She's lived in Scotland for quite a few years, but she's still very much definitely got her Northern Irish accent. So we'll pass over to Debbie Neely.
Hi, Debbie. Nice to see you. How are you today?
Good afternoon, Jane. I am well. The end of the summer coming along. So, yes, all is good. Yourself?
Yeah, I'm not too bad either. So it's great to have you along for our podcast. So we're going to ask you a number of questions, not 20 questions quite, but it's not mastermind. So it's all about you. So the first thing is, who do you currently work for, and what's the background of the organisation, just to get an understanding around that side of you?
I work for Entrust Environmental Limited. Now, this is a wee company that I currently own, operate, whatever way you want to put it, what we do is we focus on organic byproducts and wastes. Find solutions for them essentially. So, we deal with all the anaerobic digesters, the composters, distillers, breweries, paper manufacturers, like it's a wide range of producers out there that have organic materials. And what we do is we find the best outlet that we can for their, like whatever it is, a waste or a byproduct. And sometimes we actually need to identify for them, like where that status is or what class it's in. Now, when we start with that, we're obviously looking through the regulations to see what options there is for those materials. Like, do they have any value for various outlets? One of the primary outlets that we have is actually agriculture, where a huge amount of these materials can actually go as a direct replacement for artificial fertilizer. So it means that the farmers are more sustainable. They tend to be a wee bit more economical than the artificial fertilizers as well. And not only are you just getting the primary nutrient, you're also getting that wide range of minerals, trace elements, everything else that helps the soil, like, as well as organic matter. So agriculture is a big thing for us. So we employ several high value people that are known to the agricultural industry and work in that to sell those materials, like to that market. But we have many other outlets as well, and usually if we can't help somebody, we'll find somebody that's,
It's always this thing, isn't it, in this industry? If you don't know, you'll find somebody. There's somebody somewhere who knows something about something, isn't there?
I think that's great, and it's such a great industry to work in because everybody works. Most people just work together, So if I can't do it or it's not my specialist, I can say, you guys can do it, or somebody else can do it. Here's their number, give them a wee ring, and that's just it. Like it works really well. So no, we're only a small organization, but we cover an awful lot of ground. Let's say an awful lot of ground. But yeah, we love it. Like everybody that we work with, all our customers has been with us for years. We never give them an excuse to leave. They're all very well looked after and generally seem to be quite happy with us. And by customers, I mean not only the big producers, those farmers, we have hundreds of farmers that we actually look after as well. So they're equally as important to us as customers.
Yeah, that sounds good, because I know from sort of my past experience and things like that, looking at different critical elements, and phosphate being one of the few minerals that is quite rare or could be, or there's not enough coming in as fertilizers. So actually replacing that with the materials that you're replacing it makes a whole lot of sense, really.
Absolutely. Like, I mean, how do you say the two? I'm quite a boring, probably soil scientist, agronomist from that point of view. But if you're looking after essentially your organic matter and your pHs in your soil, everything else around that's, like you can make fit into place. But using these, how do you say, organic fertilizers means that we're not having to use all those virgin materials. And that sounds very, how do you say, maybe tree hugging or whatever you want to call it. But ultimately, how do you say, it's better use for the farm.
Debbie, it's the circular economy. That's the buzzword. We're circular economy straight away on that material.
Yeah, well, how do you say, any of the chats, like we do some tours of the ADs, and it's one of the fine things that I always say to a lot of householders. It is the ultimate, AD is the ultimate circular economy, because what we're doing is, say, farmer grows broccoli, and for whatever reason, we don't eat it. We buy it, goes to the supermarket, we buy it, bring it into the house, it's not eaten, we put it into the food waste bin, that goes to an AD plant. Now, all of that broccoli will go into the AD. So what we do is we create energy out of that. We also create a agricultural fertilizer. So all the nutrients and all the goodness that originally came from the soil has gone back into the soil. Grow more broccoli. There you go. So nothing's wasted.
So you were just saying about the broccoli and coming from the householders. What kind of issues do you have then? Because obviously the majority of us now have got food waste collections and things like that. So, and hopefully the majority of us are using this
They're
although
not, Jane, they're not.
I know. I was being positive there, Alistair. But the majority of people aren't using it, or some people are using it. So what issues do you have there? Because I'm just, I'm just conscious that we find a lot of food waste when we're doing our waste composition analysis just thrown away in domestic waste and also in recycling and everything else in between. So, but is the food waste you're actually getting any use from households?
Fantastic, yes. And like some councils are better at it than others. So yeah, I would say the householder is doing a reasonable job at it, especially for segregation of food. They're not too bad at all. A little bit of assistance, guidance from the council themselves. We couldn't say too much in that vein, but we're simply not getting enough of it. So this fabulous service that has been rolled out by all the councils. However, as I'm sure you guys will know better than me, I think it's about a third of the household bin, or the third of the weight, is still food waste. So how do we get that out of like the bin? How do we persuade your average householder to put that into the correct bin? That's a big want. The service is there.
It's a big challenge, that, isn't it, Debbie? Because I think, and from your experience, what's actually happening is it's good to know what happens to it. Basically, is that we're taking it in. The facilities are producing that into a material that can be used on the farms and
Yep.
in that situation. So it is actually beneficial and useful and important to recycle your food waste.
Yes, absolutely. And it also improves the quality of the food that is grown on the resultant soil.
Mm-hmm.
So what we actually get, that's going to improve our health, and that we're getting all those trace elements, everything actually returned back to us. So the value of that broccoli or carrots or whatever is a higher value. So yeah, I do think there is that maybe lack of knowledge with the average householder, that we're all busy people, to be fair, to say that what you put in that bin is being processed very, very carefully, and it's all very valuable material again. But how do we persuade people, to put every drop of food waste into the proper bin rather than the grey bin?
Oh, we're trying through our podcast, Debbie. All those people out there will now listen to what you say, and they'll be there. There will be renewed and bigger going on and putting stuff in their compost bins.
I think the question you asked there, I think we need to be more forceful at saying to people, you must use your food waste system. And if you don't, then there's penalties. And until we get to that stage, people aren't going to do it.
I have to agree with you, actually, Alistair. The only way, unfortunately, I think we are going to get through to people is to say that you're going to have to, pretty much pay as you throw. So that grey bin's going to have to be a cost.
Yeah.
And everything outside that's going to be based on the quality of your recyclate that you're presenting.
Yeah.
Because all the awareness that has been very carefully done through Zero Waste Scotland and through the councils and all various means, we've reached a plateau now, and we need to find a different method, probably with some speed, to get the organics out of the bin now.
The figure I keep quoting, or the two figures I keep quoting, is residual waste in Scotland is 30% food. So that's a massive cost, massive carbon impact, that going to the wrong place. And another one is less than 20% of householders use their food bin. So effectively a national service is provided and less than 20% use it. Until we try and start make changes to these numbers, and it's probably more important than recycling plastic and all these things in terms of carbon impact. But we'll get there eventually.
Slow process.
Absolutely. So just moving on a little bit, Debbie, and in terms of your background, are you a soil scientist? Are you what's your background? What brought you into this this world of waste onto?
How do you say, I've been around now for nearly 30 years in the organic waste industry, if you like. In them days, compost and AD was just, we had no aware of the fabulousness of it at that point in time. You know, it just really hadn't been a thing that the UK had considered. But yeah, I did environmental science, Northern Ireland, obviously. Not because of any great calling. I actually did environmental science because I thought it sounded a bit more interesting than geography. Honestly.
That's a good enough reason.
That was about it, honestly. Whenever you're 18, how do you know what you want to do? Like, you know, so that was fine. Then I did, I went to Queen's to do a master's in agricultural science. I left that to go over to work in Scotland for the summer on sewage sludge, believe it or not. Again, not something that I was thinking my lifetime ambition. I want to work with sewage sludge, but here we are. And that has been me since, pretty much. Like, you know, I get into the world of waste from there. Worked with various companies, and then I gave up full-time employment about 20 years ago. Kids were small, long days traveling, and I just decided this isn't amenable. I'm just not happy at this. Worked as a consultant for several years with ADAS, several of the composters, if you know, worked with some sewage, biosolids, but that work was growing fairly rapidly, and then eventually started Entrust, and here we are. So it's worked out fairly well, actually. So yeah, I've been one of those boring people that has been in the waste industry my whole lifetime.
There's no such thing as being boring in the waste industry, Debbie.
A wee bit of boredom would be good.
No, absolutely. I was just thinking of a question. I'm maybe putting you on the spot here. In terms of context for people, what sort of tonnage is handled by, if you like, putting waste to land for beneficial use? What sort of tonnage are we talking about in Scotland?
Exceedingly large tonnage, but there could be an awful lot more of it. You know, like we probably do the majority of it, especially in the central belt of Scotland. But we will only handle materials that we want to handle, essentially. Now, you know, like we're in that luxury position where we're saying, unless those materials we can see genuine benefit from them, genuine benefit for the farmer, well then we won't touch them. For many different reasons, not only for our own personal ethical reasons, but from the point of view that we deal with these farmers on many different levels. So we need to make sure what we're actually selling to them is the correct material. But at the moment, there's probably about, in terms of digestate, merely in the central region, there's about 250,000 tons of digestate goes back to agriculture.
That's a lot of material, isn't it?
Yeah, and remember, yeah, that's only a fraction of what is actually happening. And like I say, outside that, there's a wide range of other materials, you know, like from distillers, many different aspects. And yeah, it's a good source of nutrient for farmers, as we are.
Is there any comparison, between like what's currently being used as artificial fertilizer and, you know, and the sort of organic fertilizer that you're producing? Is there a sort of a comparison there to say, you know, at the moment Scotland is using, I don't know, 75% organic and 25% artificial, or is there anything like that?
No, I don't actually think there is, Jane. It's a good question, but we are actually limited by the amount of volume we have by the producers. And sometimes that can be a tad frustrating in terms of when you're in the business of selling materials and you don't have sufficient to sell at certain times of the year. You know, like, and it's not just as straightforward as, you know, selling artificial fertilizer, because our production level is even 12 months of the year. Farmers only require fertilizer during a limited period. So what we have to do is manage those materials, store them, find different outlets for them during the periods whenever agriculture, you know, like, shouldn't be using them, essentially. And again, that's something that we try to manage as carefully as possible.
And they shouldn't be using them at times because of pollution, effectively, isn't it? It's effectively you apply a digestate to land when in the middle of winter when it's going to rain and just wash off and so on? Is that the type of things you're dealing with all the time?
All the time. So yeah, we always aim to store the materials for about 6 months of the year as a minimum. Like we can't really justify putting on really high digestate, high nutrient at the wrong time whenever the crop doesn't require it. Like aside from pollution, it has to be beneficially used. We can't justify that. And then during the winter time, obviously the weather would stop us like doing any spreading anyway. But aside from that, it's not good news if we're giving a farmer, like selling a farmer a material, it's washed out of the soil or washed further down through the profile. He doesn't see any benefit from it, so why is he coming back to buy any more? But like I say, sometimes that's down to the individual farmer. They're businessmen in their own right, so we sell them a material, but it's up to them at the end of the day what they choose to do with it.
Interesting. Any sort of favourite projects or roles you've had through your career? Any times you look back to and think, oh, that was the best. That was when life was simple.
Yes, you're right. Simple. Probably a couple of them. At the time, whenever I was working with sewage sludge, they brought in the biosolids assurance scheme. Pretty much sewage has got many regulations. They weren't being enforced. They were all over the place, codes, upgrades. It was very complex, difficult to actually keep any compliance on it, truth be told. And the biosolids assurance scheme brought all those together. It's still far from perfect. A lot of investment needed there from Scottish Water to make it slicker. But yeah, the biosolids assurance scheme, actually, it was nice to see that come in place, see that integrated into it, and actually see some regulation being enforced in there. That was a good move for the industry. And uncannily, actually, at the time that they did that, once it was integrated, I had decided to move on, to new challenges and new things, and moved on to digestate, which where we are today. But that was another project that I really liked, and that we find that, like you said, Jane, we're not necessarily competing, but we're in the market with the artificial fertilizer guys. Now, these guys has it sussed in terms of marketing, branding, everything that they have there. So we felt that to give digestate a proper marketing regime, it was actually energy and biogas that we started it with. So we did a firm branding, marketing. So now we've got shiny brochures, we've got all the delivery tankers, with the logo on the side, got our own website, those type of things, which just make us look that bit more professional. It takes us away from that association with waste as such, in order to improve the image, improve the value of the material, and say, yes, you can have Energrow, you can have a 2010-10 in your white pellets that you're used to, but these are now 2 firm products. It's not just something that we're trying to get rid of, which I hate that word. We're no longer trying to get rid of. It's a firm market that we have there. So to be able to bring that from a place of disrepute at one point in time, to bring it forward to where we are at the moment, and that there's no point in pretending. The producers on the ADs has invested a huge amount in ensuring the quality of their digestate is, and I think, as an industry, we're sitting in a very good place. So from my point of view, I was quite proud of the fact that we were able to, bring that up a few steps from where it was.
That's quite interesting, because I guess, does that come into the end of waste discussion as well? Trying to, you've now got a product, not a waste.
Mm-hmm. Yes, very much so. But even though as an industry we can transfer that from a waste to a product, it's still getting that image across to our market. And I think we became very unhinged for a little while. In some places we are still, in that we talk so much internally about what we think our market wants or what we're going to do, and we see the issues and solve the issues, but we're not actually communicating that very well to the market that we're trying to reach about the hard work that we put in to get there. So I think that's what we were trying to do with this, was to say, look, guys, the producers put in huge investment into this. We've done a lot of work. This is a quality, consistent product, which, it has its place on the market, so it needs that respect as well. And like I say, now it's got a fabulous reputation. hundreds and hundreds of farmers actually use it across Scotland. Well established in everybody's nutrient plans, into their budgets. Farmers book it up for years in advance so that they can get it when they actually want it. At the time of year that they want it. A lot of farmers has put in farm stores so that they can store it in the winter time. They have it sitting on their farm so they can use it when it suits them. So yeah, it's been a long road, but we're sitting in a healthy place now.
Good. That's kind of where you want to be, isn't it? And I guess that's you're talking about your current role at the moment in Entrust, and I suppose it's taking that the next step further and making sure it kind of takes the place of all the artificial fertilizers out there and getting more quality product and getting more product as well as everything else. Yeah,
absolutely. And the artificial fertilizer guys, yeah, they welcome the alternative because they know it works well with theirs. We have got elements in there that they can offer in one or two, but not in the range that we have, and they're quite happy actually. So they're not miscalling us. They're not, there's no issues there. And like I say, we also sell artificial fertilizer if that's what the farmer requires. So we're not seen to be biased as such. Like, we do have that option.
So does that also link in with sort of like organic farming? All that the material that you're using, you can class that as organic, and the organic farmers can take that material as well. Is that is that kind of where that stage is as well?
Yes, we actually had, how can I put it, many conversations with the regulators for the organic farms, for organic farming to be allowed to be using digestate, especially from food waste. But credit to them, their understanding has improved no end, and yeah, it's actually encouraged quite a few of our farmers has actually gone into organic farming now on the basis that they do not require artificial fertilizer at all in their systems.
That's quite interesting, because I always wondered what the organic farmers actually use, because they must use some kind of fertilizer. So I guess that sort of makes sense in a way as well.
Yeah. Yep.
So I'm presuming, you've had this organic based role all the way through, and I'm assuming that your food waste at home is top notch. Your food waste collection, you've got everything organised, all the family sorted, friends and family, anybody who comes in, they can view your food waste collection process in your kitchen. So do you feel like that's something that you champion within your within outside the workplace as well?
No, that is a question. That is a question, to say the least. I do probably get a little perturbed whenever people say, like at the time we're in South Lanarkshire, and at the time we all got our food caddies, and it was quite incredible how many of my friends said, "Oh, can't believe they're asking us to put our food waste into a bin." But you already do that. Only instead of putting it into that bin, you put it into this bin. Why are you getting an additional yuck factor from this? It just stands me completely amused that is the case. But yeah, I think, truth be told, it's actually made us more aware as a householder. Any food that we do waste.
Yeah.
You sit back and look at it, going, like, what happened there?
I've just paid good money for that food, and it's no longer food.
Yeah. So you do take a wee second look at it, but generally, Jane, in answer to your question, most people outside work are just confused by what I do for a living. They are just confused. Honestly, I just do not know how to start to describe what I do. But truth be told, if you meet somebody new at wherever, the minute you say, "What do you do for a living?" you say, "Well," you mention the word organic waste, you can guarantee there's going to be a change in direction of that conversation fairly quickly.
Yeah, that's a conversation stopper there, Debbie.
Not
Yeah.
true if I was sitting next to you, Debbie. We'd have a great conversation about all sorts of waste things.
We always do. We always do. You know, like even our kids actually think, like, I mean, that we must campaign with Greenpeace or something. Like, I mean, they're just, yeah, it just leads to confusion, you know, like as to what I do day in, day out. But I know that anybody outside work can say, yeah, she loves what she does. She absolutely loves what she does. No issue with coming to work. You know, I never have that Monday morning feeling. I'm quite happy. I like what I do. So bit of a workaholic, I must admit. But overall, I do like it. But I do tend to confuse people with that.
It is quite fascinating, Debbie, when you think about it. When you talk about the tonnages you're dealing with, there's not a huge pool of people in Scotland that do what you do. You know,
Nope.
I could probably, literally thinking off the top of my head, probably one hand would be the number of people I can think of that are in associated type industries. So it's in terms of the waste sector, you're in a real niche, but a really, really essential niche. And it's whether, I think sometimes that it gets sort of forgotten that all that work's getting done, and this big waste stream has actually been managed pretty well. So no, it's interesting. In terms of just moving on from that, in terms of how do you just mentioned you're a workaholic. How do you escape? How do you get away from the work, or do you?
No, I do. Did you not hear I'm a great gymnast? I started like me.
I never knew you were a gymnast.
No, you're right. I'm not. But it sells a good story. Like, but no, I must admit, you know, like I probably do get criticised for working far too much, but I like what I do, you know. So it's not really a huge issue for me. But overall, like I mean, both Thomas, my husband, and I were from Northern Ireland, so we've got two very fine daughters who are now in their 20s, making their own mark in the world as such. Like, so we tend to be a fairly tight wee team. As you can imagine, neither of them is particularly shy. And we also have two dogs, which are...
Oh, there must be lots of walking involved in those then, Debbie.
Yeah, very active, very spoiled dogs, holidayed everywhere with us. Yeah, we're great puppy people, I have to say. Like, so yeah, we do like that. And because I can board quicker than a toddler, any holidays that we do go on, it needs to be fairly active holidays, because like I say, I get bored quicker than a toddler. Like, so but yeah, overall we're big social people. Like, weekends are booked well in advance. Like, so we're very, very blessed to have some fairly average friends. Like, but
yeah, hopefully they'll be listening to your podcast here,
yep.
Debbie, and going, oh, I recognise myself.
They will.
I've got to ask, what type of dog and what are their names?
Oh, they're both cockapoos. Tilly's actually 4 today.
Oh, there you go. Happy birthday to Tilly.
Yeah, Tilly's 4. She's a black one. Very well mannered. Mary Poppins herself, practically perfect in every way. And then we've got Tara. Tara's about half her size, and a little blonde bombshell who frustrates the life out of us. Extremely cheeky, loves the world, and thinks that everybody should love her in return, to the detriment of any outside activity. So not sure where we went wrong, but yeah, second child syndrome there.
We have had we always ask guests for a wee profile picture to put out the podcast. So we have had a wee theme of guests with their dogs. So quite happy to receive such a picture from yourself if you want to share it.
Yeah. Our two girls are absolutely spoiled. Like, so and our two daughters also spoil them as well. But yeah, that's us, workaholic, but yeah, quite social beings, I would say.
And what's next for you, for your career? What is more of the same, or have you got big grand plans?
You know something, I'm quite happy to retain where we are. We've got some cracking customers. They look after us as much as we look after them. However, on a personal level, I think I need to learn to delegate better, maybe work a bit smarter rather than longer. But
Debbie, you've been saying that for 20 years.
I know. We've had, I was going to say, we've had this
I've had this conversation before with you.
I know I'm still working on it, like, but I'm kind of getting a bit older now, and I'm thinking I would maybe need to take a look, like, I mean, and see what else I would like to try my hand at. You know, but if I'm blessed with good health, I will continue to work. You know, like
Need
the business.
to take a day off, like Alistair, and go running in the mountains somewhere, and you know, miles
every
away
Friday
from
off,
nowhere.
Debbie. Every Friday off. That's where you need to get to.
And
highly recommend it.
Yeah, I do agree with you, and it's something that I am actually aiming for. But what I think I need to do is have something else in place, you know, like to actually, you know, like keep me busy. If I didn't have that, well, then I would just resort back to, you know, my comfort zone.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I know where you're coming from there. So, in terms of your job or sector, have you got one fact that you think people might not know? I mean, we've probably gone through quite a lot of facts actually, but is there anything there that you think this is out of my industry, what I do? This is one fact you should know about.
Actually, when I was just having a wee think about that, and I actually think that people don't really understand the employment opportunities that's within the waste industry. You know, like, I know this drum has been beaten previously, but from our point of view, it's very, very difficult to get the youngsters into this world of waste as such. Like, but you must admit, how many people sat down when they were a child and said, you know what I would like to do when I grow up? I want to work in the waste industry. It's not the done thing, like,
Jane,
you know.
Jane, that's what Jane did.
Really, Jane?
She
Really?
did.
Well, no, when I was a youngster, to be fair, it was when I was at uni. You know, when I was at uni, and and my last project was on, because I did geology, so it was all about geology and landfilling waste. So, and then I went into the waste industry.
So far, Debbie, we've found Jane Bond and Simon Glenn. They are both people that fully intended to always go into the waste industry. So so in percentage terms, you're absolutely right. Not many people think about going in the waste industry.
You are right, and I think that's something that needs to be changed. We had actually wanted to take on, you know, like a school leaver or an apprentice or something like along those lines this year, and I just got fed up with the amount of time it was taking, and frustrated at the fact that, you know, like, to go through the apprenticeship with the various schemes, there wasn't one that fit in with the waste industry. So we couldn't find anything. There just didn't seem to be the processes or policies in place that was able to actually bring forward those young people that we would be able to train, you know, like be able to show them what this industry is about and its benefits, even over a summer. Yeah, I just don't know how we promote ourselves more sufficiently or efficiently. And, you know, like, we've got chemists, we have your soil scientists, we have many specialist operators, we have engineers, we have agronomists, we have legal people. You know, the list goes on, but we're just not quite getting there. And I think that's going to be required even for the sustainability, you know, like in the longer term of our business. But you must admit, you know, like, even whenever you're at a conference or a seminar or whatever, when you sit down and look around you, you know, most of the people are there. They've been, maybe ironically, recycled from another role, but they're all the same people.
And we're all getting older.
We are indeed. We are indeed, like, so.
You're preaching to the converted here, Debbie, because that's, you know, I'm quite heavily involved with Switch, and one of the things we're really trying to do is how do you get these career pathways into the sector. And one of the interesting things we're trying to develop, but it's going to be a pretty long haul, I think, is a graduate apprenticeship, where a graduate would, so you would employ the person and they would do sort of day release for, you know, quite a long period, either sort of 3-4 year period, and try and use some of the existing courses that are out there at the moment as a foundation. And then, because there's loads of soil courses, there's loads of, you know, all type of things that you would expect somebody in the waste sector to know, and then sort of specialise as the years go on. So we are actually trying to develop that, but it's a long, you know, we are all volunteers, and you know, these things take time. So But I think you're right. I think for the waste sector is such an important sector that we have got this ageing workforce, and there's other sectors, you know, the power sector, they've already identified, they've got a strategy in place to try and bring people in. You know, the waste sector's a bit more disparate, it's a bit more spread out over different organisations, and I don't think anybody's quite realised there is quite a looming, you know, everybody's 50, everybody's 55, they'll all be retiring in a few years, and that the knowledge will just be wiped out of the sector. So
Yep, and that's just it. You said a very relevant word there, the knowledge. You know,
Yep.
like we need to transfer that into other people coming up. And I don't think we're doing enough of that. It's still, even though we may be able to write down processes, procedures, whatever, we still need to actually transfer that on a one-to-one basis and also have the enthusiasm for it. But yeah, I did question at the start of the summer to say, where is this going wrong? And is it that word, you know, like, do you want an apprenticeship in the waste industry? Do you want to learn about this? It doesn't sound that great. Yeah, I think there's a great room for improvement there.
We need to just make it sexy, don't we, Debbie? I don't quite know how we could do that.
Exactly. Yeah.
I do know the other thing I would add to that. I do know the modern apprenticeship framework for the waste sector is in an absolute mess at the moment, and I've been ranting about that for you know, people that know me on Switch and so on know that I've got no confidence in the structure that's out there, and you know, there's organisations that should be looking at that in Scotland, but they're not. You know, and it does need some pretty serious attention, but
yeah.
It's maybe not on other people's list. You know, we can see it, but other people maybe can't see it. So
yeah, we're
anyway,
quite niche. We are quite niche in what we do as well. Like, so it's
yeah.
very, very difficult.
Yes.
There isn't something out there that's going to fit, you know, like what we do to bring on people.
And I think that is the difficulty, that, you know, when you're in a really specific niche, is what can you use? What can you know, what qualification route can you follow down? Anyway, so moving on, we always ask our guests for one bit of industry jargon or an acronym that you love or loathe, or you've not actually used many. You've actually not many. You used AD, but I think we're okay. I think people understand what anaerobic digestion is. I think we're okay there.
Yeah, we do like a wee acronym in this industry, don't we?
Yep.
We do like that. If there was any competition in any industry, the odds is that we would probably win it, I have to say, like, but probably one of them that we use is, you know, like the pass accreditation.
Yep.
And we refer to that on a daily basis in our place, but I know most people haven't, maybe they're not interested, but a lot of people don't actually know that that's a public available standard. But that's a hard-won standard, you know, like not only to get it, to also to retain it. And it's what makes, obviously, you guys know, a waste into a product status.
Yep.
But the value or the purpose of that is probably a little vague to most people. So, like I say, on a daily basis, we probably try to explain to people, you know, like the importance of that, you know, like that food waste that you're scraping off your plate, it's not the stuff that we're putting back to land, you know. There's a wee bit of huge amount of work and investment to actually get it to a standard that it can actually go back to work. So we all talk about the it's a pass material, but that's us to understand fully in the industry, you know, like just how hard won.
What sits behind that?
Yeah, yep. But we kind of take for granted that everybody else outside that knows it when they don't. So
the two that you're probably referring to, so you've passed 100 for compost, which so you make your compost. If you meet the specification past 100, then you can view that as no longer a waste. And then for your digestate, same principle, but it's past 110, and it's got to meet that specification and so on.
Yep.
And you're right. There's a huge amount of work goes into that people don't quite realise the sort of standard you've got to achieve there.
And the standards in Scotland are specifically difficult, and rightly so difficult.
Yeah.
Given, you know, like that we're trying to get these, you know, like these products being, you know, they are beneficial to agricultural land, but the high standards in Scotland, I must admit that I do I do applaud. But it's just, you know, like I do get frustrated that people don't really fully grasp, and we are guilty of that ourselves, that assume that everybody knows just how valuable that standard is.
But I think that's back to what we talked about. We're very good at talking internally to the waste sector. We're actually very poor at communicating externally.
Yes, I have to agree. I have to agree with you. It's yeah, a grave frustration of my own. Like I say, sometimes I can be sitting in conferences and just astounded at how much internal work we do, but nobody actually knows that that's actually happening on the outside. So we are probably room for improvement, I would say.
Okay, I'm going to give you a magic wand to deal with one issue. What would you like to use it on?
Now that is a big.
It can be in your sector, or it could be even wider if you so wish.
Probably the main thing would be, you know, like the improvement that we need to have in better education, you know, like for youth employment. I do think that's, like, I mean, one of my great frustrations at the moment, that I would love to see that improved or promoted even at school level, and then through university. Like Eugene, I did environmental science, so I had the geology and the pedology and all the rest of it. But realistically, as you know, it's only a baseline learning until you actually get into employment and see the nitty-gritty of everyday life. But it's a great industry to work in. The amount of variety that we have every day and what we do, it never gets boring, and we're always moving forward. You know, like there's always something new to actually look at, or new processes coming online. We never sit steady. We're not stagnant.
No.
You know, so those opportunities are growing, and it's not something that's actually going to go away. We're still going to keep on producing these byproducts, and sustainability is growing, as you know. Everything, we're starting to become more aware, you know, like in our industry, of soil health, that type of thing. So it's a hugely growing industry, becoming even more interesting than we were before. We just need an image makeover, that we're not just all standing shoveling odorous materials, you know, which there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, sometimes.
Well, there is the odd day, to be fair. Yep, there is.
So what advice, Debbie, what advice, Debbie, would you give somebody who wants to follow a similar career path to yourself? You know, there's all these kids out there who are thinking, Debbie, I want to be like Debbie. How would you, you know, what would you tell them to do?
Gain some experience. Some experience, you know, like in the, just even on a basic level, you know, like if you don't understand it, go and have a wee Google, you know, like what happens to food waste. You know, like some of the councils has got some fabulous tutorials on what they actually do. And there is a lot of information actually out there, but it's like I say, we just need a wee PR makeover. In reality, I always say, you know, like everybody I meet seems to have worked for Shanks. I don't know how they managed to get so many people in their youth, but I actually feel left out. I didn't work for Shanks.
No, really, I know what you mean.
Well, you see, that's just it. Most people actually seem to come from Shanks, so I wonder what they done right to get all these fine people in there, that we don't seem to be, you know, like able to do now. So yeah, it's a great industry with growing opportunities in it, many different roles. So, you know, like we can make a penny or two in it as well. When we were searching for youngsters, it all seemed to be focused on government grants and what money you could take or how little you would need to pay them, all this sort of thing. And going, just give me somebody with a bit of enthusiasm, and I will work with them and quite happy to pay them. Somebody who's willing to learn, somebody who's got a bit of interest in it, able to chat, got an interest, you'll be able to do something with them, like, you know. I'm not looking for A-grade students or whatever. I just want somebody with a bit of enthusiasm for what they can actually do. And like I say, I do think that our industry as a whole seems to be lacking. Like I say, we do recycle our own people within the industry.
I think it's interesting that you say that, because we've been doing some assessments for the modern apprentices, and some of them, one guy in particular, he really is, you know, pretty enthusiastic, and you know, whereas some of the others are just like there because the council put them on the course, they're not really interested whatsoever. But you know, so you see the difference in people, and you know who's going to get on and who isn't.
I think you're right. We've actually had some of the council apprentices up, you know, like at the various sites, and some of them you can tell really. But generally, if you can show that enthusiasm to them, by the time they're leaving, yeah, they've got questions, you know, like they're not the bored looking, you know, 18-year-old standing there. That they're actually quite intrigued that there is a wee element here that is of interest, or you know, like, and it's actually showing them the enthusiasm for what we do for a living, and it's an interesting career choice.
Brilliant, brilliant. Well, thank you. I think we've exhausted our question list, Debbie. So thank you for your time. Thank you for explaining it all so clearly. I still never knew you were a gymnast. Was that in your younger day?
Listen, I
Or
still
I think
am.
you were kidding. I think you were kidding me on there, actually.
Do you think? Really? Really? No, I still do it on a regular basis. Like,
You can see her doing her handsprings and flick flacks and things.
that's me, Jane. That's me. To a T.
There we go. Well, thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure to chat to both of you.